Om Namo Narayanaya. Hello, good morning. Welcome to my kitchen as we continue reading through the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the reasons I started this channel was I wanted to read the scriptures that I see referenced elsewhere. Funny enough, in the last or next to the last Bhagavatam video that I did, I was reading about something, the creation of the world. And then I was reading last night, before I went to bed, Swami Prabhupada's 2-volume set, Krishna, which I actually showed in another video, the prose biography of Krishna collected from all these sources. And I'm reading along, and I'm in the chapter of prayers of Lord Brahman to Krishna, and I'm reading along, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize this. This is right from what I was reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam in my video. So I thought that was really cool. Finally, I'm getting to see the source material, or you know, as much of the source material as we can get. So it's just, yeah, it's just really great. It's fun, and I'm enjoying this, even though it's a very heavy text. Also, it makes me feel good when I'm reading those other things to go, okay, this cites the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I can actually go back and I remember reading this, or it's there, so I know what I'm getting is a true, a pure, a real interpretation. Not just, I see so many websites out there, they're like, this thing, whatever it is, it's often a New Age thing, can be found in the Upanishads and the Vedas, but if you look, it's not there. And the person saying that's never read probably any of those, doesn't even really know what they are. They're just saying that, and it gets said 100 times, and after 100 people saying it, well, it must be true, it must be in the Vedas. But no one's actually read them, and no one really cares to. And I see that so much, and then they're like, well, this is Hindu, this is a Hindu thing, because it's in the Vedas. I'm like, okay, show me where. Just, if it's in there, I will believe it. If it's not Hindu. It's New Age. And many of us are trying to purge New Age stuff and decolonize Hinduism. Anyways, sorry, that opened up with a nice little comment about my reading and then turned into a rant. But decolonizing Hinduism and taking it back and purifying it is actually something that's really important to me. So here we go. Chapter 4, The Appearance of Sri Narada. Vasudeva said, on hearing Suta Goswami speak thus, Shanaka Muni, who was the elderly learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. Shanaka said, "Oh, Suta Goswami, you are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Shukadevi Goswami. In what period and at what place was this first begun, and why was this taken up? From where did the Krishna Dvaipayana Vasya, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? His, Vasudeva's son, was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. While Sri Vasudeva was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth, though Sri Vasudeva himself was not naked. But they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them made no distinction between male and female, but the sage made such distinctions. How was he, Srila Shukadeva, the son of Vasyar, recognized by citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapura, now Delhi, after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas to be sung to him? He, Shukadeva Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked, and he did this just to sanctify the residence. It is said that Maharaja Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord, and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. He was a great emperor and possessed all the opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death? He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed kingly opulences that were difficult to give up. Why did he give up everything, including his life? Those who are devoted to the cause of Lord Vishnu live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So even though Emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was shelter for others? We know that you are an expert in the meaning of all subjects, except some portions of the Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answers to all these questions we have just put to you. Sukta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vasudeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Once upon a time, Vasudeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of the Sarasvati and sat alone to concentrate. The great sage Vasudeva saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on the earth in different ages due to the unseen force of time. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of man in all statuses and orders of life. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupation could be purified, and to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4, in order to expand them among men. 4 divisions of the original sources of knowledge were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the 5th Veda. After the Vedas were divided into 4 sections, Pila Rishi became the professor of the Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of the Sama Veda, and Vaishambhayana alone became glorified by the Yajurveda. The Sumanto Muni Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Artha Veda, and my father, Maharshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records. All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their entrusted Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples, and great-grand disciples, and thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being. Thus the great sage Vasudeva, who was very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intelligent men. Less intellectual men. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it was wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice-born. Twice-born Brahmanas, still in his mind was not satisfied, though he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself, I have, under strict disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the spiritual masters, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rulings and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of the Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and others, such as friends of the twice-born, can see the path of religion. I am feeling incomplete. though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. As mentioned before, Narada reached the cottage of Krishna Vaipayana Vasya on the banks of the Sarasvati just as Vasudeva was regretting his defects. At the auspicious arrival of Sri Narada, Sri Vasudeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the Creator. And thus ends Chapter 4 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Comments, questions, all that good stuff below. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.